Story 1. Isolation from family. Non-group members are outsiders. Bodily functions are controlled. Chanting and the use of words unique to the group. Encouragement of donations with shaming for those who do not donate. Groupthink and a central, all-powerful leader. Group members are considered special. Story 2. When someone refuses to acknowledge flaws and uses abstract logic against the opposition to justify them. When someone identifies as a believer in their system to the extent that they strive to be the best believer. When someone expresses a sense of hope in something that isn't materializing. When there is marked hostility towards people who go against their leader or specific groups targeted by their leader. Feeling as though bending to the whims of a leader is bettering the world for a noble cause, regardless of the detrimental effects on themselves and those around them. It makes sense if you look at it this way. He was right about everything. The truth will be revealed when they act. They are going to resolve the problem by getting rid of certain individuals. Story 3. They could be told 2 + 2 = 3 by what they have been indoctrinated with, and they would start conceptualizing and preparing arguments as to why that is ultimately true. Story 4. Ask them what evidence they would require to change their mind. If they say nothing, they might be influenced or indoctrinated. Story 5. The party instructed you to disregard the evidence of your senses. It was their final and most essential command. Story 6. Personally, I think the terms brainwashed and indoctrinated carry strong connotations and are often used to describe ideologies that an individual disagrees with. Here is my best attempt at a non-political checklist. 1. Admitting that nothing can change their mind. Inability to change their opinion after being confronted with evidence or an inability to confront evidence. Claiming that everyone else is brainwashed. Inability to take self-accountability and a lack of empathy. Unwillingness to accept criticism of their beliefs. Beliefs are more based on emotions than facts, even if a person thinks their beliefs are based on facts. Just because someone might vaguely fit these criteria does not necessarily mean they are indoctrinated, but I believe these are important aspects to consider. Story 7. When you prove someone wrong, or even better, if you make them prove themselves wrong, and they actively choose to ignore it because it does not fit their idea. Story 8. It's my family member who is a vaccine skeptic, but is happy to get Botox every time they can. You are getting injected with harmful chemicals. Story 9. They wholeheartedly believe anyone who opposes or disagrees with their beliefs and views is inherently evil. Story 10. They cannot be reasoned with and cannot look beyond their blinders. Their lives are defined by their beliefs and thought processes. Story 11. They speak untruths with the utmost confidence, as if they are subject matter experts. A man in his 70s told me last week that Mars came close to Earth, dumping sand on all the beaches and creating the desert. That explains why the world is not more than 5,000 years old. Story 12. My dad cannot accept any flaws about the administration when I point them out. He views Trump as a literal god, and it makes me sad. Story 13. They interpret discussion as a personal attack and get upset when you challenge an idea. Healthy individuals do not attach their identity to political stances. Story 14. Based on experiences with some family members, I would say that labeling anyone who disagrees with a derogatory term and avoiding making an argument is a sign of insecurity and ignorance. Story 15. As long as their side wins, they believe the ends justify the means in every situation, no matter what. Story 16. They say jump, we say how high. You're oblivious. You have a bullet in your head. Story 17. Not knowing the details of the beliefs of groups they disagree with and considering it a bad thing to learn about their opponent's views. Story 18. They vote for a convicted felon and continue to support that political party's ideologies instead of focusing on facts. Story 19. Taking arguments to heart can lead to stubborn anger when someone holds a differing opinion. Additionally, they may not question their sources. Story 20. The clear signs of being delusional include strongly believing in certain ideas despite being presented with hard evidence that disproves them. Story 21. They believe in a flat earth. They believe in astrology. They believe their news is unbiased. Story 22. They use circular logic. The Bible is God's word, so it must be true. How do you know it is God's word? It says so in the Bible. I am aware that it does not explicitly state that the Bible is God's word anywhere in the Bible, but that has never stopped indoctrinated individuals from claiming it does. Story 23. They believe all their problems can be solved by a specific group, ideology, person, belief system, or political party. They receive extra credit if this group has informed them about their problems. Story 24. When they do not sway from what they are saying, regardless of how much genuine and verifiable evidence you present to them. Story 25. We've all been encouraged to start with the person in the mirror. Everything you have come to know or believe has been presented to you either by the media or by other individuals who have been indoctrinated. Story 26. They can watch a video of someone they trust explaining how it has manipulated something in the same way it is currently manipulating them and do one of two things. They immediately decide it is fake and refuse to accept alternative information. They interrupt the conversation, accusing you of being insincere, a bad friend, or saying that you always do this, even though this is the first time discussing it, asserting that they can make their own decisions and it is not harming anyone. Story 27. They stand in front of a gas station on a 110-degree day, wearing a suit or formal dress next to a display of Jehovah's Witness pamphlets. Story 28. They all typically hold the same talking points. In that crowd, you never hear anything unique. There is no original substance to the stance they are taking. It is as if a collective mindset does all the thinking, and the individuals simply echo it. Story 29. I'm late to this, but they change the way they speak. It's as if they don't use their own words. I have a friend who is like this. She often sends me long voice messages and watches an excessive amount of man-hating videos. You can easily tell that she is just repeating what others say. She uses words she normally wouldn't use much, and there are little to no breaks while she talks. She is merely repeating what was told to her, rather than sharing her own experiences. This is quite noticeable as soon as you pay attention. Story 30. They do not recognize Reddit as a liberal echo chamber that downvotes without merit those with differing opinions. Story 31. Being unwilling to consider changing opinions, even when presented with different views or information, is a concern. It does not have to go as far as ignoring facts and numbers. Complete dedication to a single idea is dogma, not reasonable thought. Anyone who insists they believe something no matter what is a glaring red flag. Additionally, there is a reluctance to accept differing opinions within a company. I often see this in groups that believe they hold the morally righteous high ground, particularly among devoted religious followers, extremist advocates for transgender rights, and vegans. It's important to note that zealots and fanatics can be concerning, regardless of their belief system. Story 32. If someone is unable to question what they are being told and gets angry when questioned, that is a huge red flag. Additionally, hating someone just because you were told to hate them is concerning. Story 33. They question everything that might disagree with them, but they never question their own convictions. Story 34. Repeated use of a thought-terminating cliché can create a sense of certainty in those who frequently rely on it. When individuals recite these phrases, they often feel validated in their beliefs, leading to a halt in further discussion and introspection. This behavior not only stifles meaningful conversation but also positions dissenters as outsiders, as no respected member of the group would challenge the statement once it is made. Story 35. When you walk someone through their reasoning until they encounter the obvious contradiction in their beliefs, they may blink for about 10 seconds before dismissing it with a catchphrase often repeated by others who share their views. Alternatively, they may react with anger. Story 36. All your sources are either random individuals, if you refer to others' lived experiences, or questionable misinformation from government or organizational websites, which do not hold credibility. However, they can share random blogs that claim to be written by scientists or doctors without any other proof, simply because they are perceived as trustworthy. Story 37. Repeatedly using the same phrases and talking points often indicates a lack of engagement with any counterpoints. Individuals may spend most of their mental energy trying to find opportunities in the conversation to insert these phrases or steering it back to areas where they feel more comfortable. They often use a significant amount of jargon that may be familiar only to them. To be fair, they usually do not fabricate information on the spot because they are uncomfortable improvising or deviating from their script. However, they tend to avoid conceding any points that challenge their beliefs. Story 38. Mental health issue. Now, it seems almost everyone has made excuses for their behaviors due to their mental health challenges. This is not a valid acceptance of the situation. Story 39. My cousin, for instance, believes that the leader's policies caused his father's death a year ago, yet he still supports the leader. They also laugh and behave as if they know more than others. Once you are labeled the enemy, everything you say is considered wrong, making communication with people who think this way much more difficult. Story 40. A significant issue I have observed is that when questioned, individuals cannot provide any evidence to support their position or even an explanation for their beliefs, yet they are completely confident in their correctness. Story 41. When individuals prioritize winning an argument over actively listening and being receptive to new information. Story 42. Cognitive dissonance refers to the discomfort experienced when discussing specific aspects of one's beliefs or worldview due to a conflict between those beliefs and reality. Mantras are specific phrases used to dismiss negative thoughts and avoid considering troubling subjects. Phrases like, God works in mysterious ways, I just have faith, or let's agree to disagree lack inherent value or meaning and serve to shut down discussion and contemplation when they trigger cognitive dissonance. Story 43. They believe that building more condominiums and apartments in a city will cause rents to skyrocket. They think all apartments and condominiums are categorized as luxury. They argue that 3,500 square foot houses on 1/10 acre lots should not be considered luxury. They assert that corporate landlords make large profits by keeping millions of dwellings empty and writing them off. Story 44. Believing that anyone who slightly disagrees is evil and that the world would be better off without them is unfortunately very common. Story 45. Repeating the same talking points indicates a lack of independent thought. Story 46. No matter what evidence you present, whether it is video, audio, or documents, they continue to make excuses and argue. Story 47. According to the Book of Revelation, the followers of the Antichrist will mark themselves on their forehead or their hand. Therefore, be alert for individuals who display their indoctrination using items such as wristbands or hats. Story 48. When you present facts with evidence, and the immediate reaction is either propaganda or they are Biden judges. Story 49. Refusing to discuss matters. Refusing to consider opposing ideas. Inflexibility regarding social issues, complete lack of empathy, quick to anger in situations that do not warrant it, inability to recognize cognitive dissonance when it is highlighted, contradictory opinions, preference for or acceptance of misleading science as long as it supports their personal views, also known as confirmation bias, willful deviation from objective facts in favor of rhetoric and buzzwords. Story 50. A few signs I have observed from people in my personal life include an inability to criticize the movement they are part of, absolute certainty in a viewpoint expressed by the group they support, mistrust of information from sources that have proven to be credible, repeating talking points instead of engaging with criticisms or ideas presented to them, abandoning personal views once held strongly to fit more into the current group with which they identify. Story 51. Supporters of Trump who follow orders are adhering to the directives of the New World Order. Story 52. They vote along party or ideological lines, regardless of the candidates or issues on the ballot. They use talking points, platitudes, and appeals to emotion rather than discussing facts and merits. They resort to manipulative tactics and other forms of intellectual dishonesty. Story 53. They do not answer questions that do not align with their views. They make connections that are not present. They are offended by minor issues. They are incapable of seeing or considering other viewpoints. This is the way it is. They easily fall for propaganda. An obvious lie can be sold to them if it is presented as aligning with their views. In some cases, they are not permitted to say or do certain things due to their conditioning. They consistently mention the same individuals when asked, "Where did you hear that?" There is a general lack of independent thought and self-awareness, as well as self-governance in many instances. Story 54. I was raised Southern Baptist and homeschooled. My parents tried to instill in me a far-right, Christian-based view of morals and ideals. I have been away from that environment for 10 years, and while I know I am bisexual, I still struggle with feelings of shame for who I am. I often feel wrong for not adhering to their beliefs, even though I recognize that I cannot support those ideals. Story 55. Freudian defense mechanisms indicate that someone is experiencing cognitive dissonance. This reaction signifies a choice to respond in an emotionally satisfying but immature manner instead of confronting and addressing the underlying contradiction. Story 56. When individuals have no understanding of the other side's main points, it can be problematic. This may seem obvious, but I have observed many people who do not grasp the most basic concepts of the position they oppose. Story 57. The Make America Great Again hat, or saying any variation of "the president works so hard and cares so much about the American people." Story 58. Bringing up unsolicited comments. I like that new burger place. I know. It's pretty good. I just hope they don't become overly politically correct and put up rainbows everywhere. This is someone whose mental state has been significantly affected. Story 59. These days, when one person claims another has been influenced or conditioned, they simply mean the other person disagrees with them and will not accept the first person's opinions or perspective on facts. Story 60. When they physically cannot stop their hands from typing the name Donald Trump whenever posts like this appear. Story 61. They advocate for a single political party. It doesn't matter which way they lean. If their way is the only way, they are lost. Story 62. Do they wear a red "Make America Great Again" hat everywhere in America? Or a "Make America Great Again" hat anywhere outside of America? They must be deeply influenced by it then. Story 63. My aunt got upset that I was questioning her faith after confronting her over several misleading pieces of Trump propaganda. This illustrates what they mean when they say it's a cult. Story 64. Just look at the Make America Great Again supporters and you will definitely notice how they do not question their orange leader. Story 65. When users have a lot of karma on Reddit, it means they never go against the narrative. Comments that do not align with the prevailing viewpoint get deleted, and users face bans. I would be surprised if this one remains active. Story 66. Ironically, believing that anyone with a different opinion must be brainwashed or indoctrinated is a strong indicator that they themselves may be. Story 67. Observing individuals on extreme sides of this political divide declare that they will no longer be friends or family, simply because someone holds a different viewpoint is likely a strong indication of the current state of discourse. Story 68. I don't know if it's brainwashing or just a lack of personality, but the people on this site who have to criticize on every single post, regardless of the context of the question or topic, are terminally boring. Story 69. My 11-year-old daughter noted that anyone flying an American flag is not a good person. Her father and I had to discuss with her how awful it is that extremists have tainted what it means to be an American patriot. Story 70. Just look at the supporters of the former president. They are influenced daily and believe only what the administration says, even when the truth is obvious. They will double down on believing the misinformation or make excuses because they have been influenced by the media, religious institutions, and politicians into thinking that everyone who disagrees with them is evil. This group is the best example for identifying signs of individuals being influenced. Story 71. When asked a difficult question about their favorite ideology, they shut down, change the subject, attack you personally, or run away. Story 72. They become very supportive and passionate about the opinions of the manipulator, but if the manipulator changes their viewpoint completely, those who have been influenced will forget all the strong arguments they previously made to support the new belief. Story 73. A refusal to engage in actual debate on the topic. Entering a real debate with good intentions signifies that you are willing, in light of good arguments or new information, to change your mind. Story 74. I was raised in the Mormon faith, so I understand this phenomenon. It mainly manifests as people refusing to accept the possibility of another reality beyond the one they believe in. If you present them with evidence that contradicts their views, they dismiss it and claim that your evidence is flawed. If you're particularly unfortunate, you may be seen not just as mistaken, but as a villain trying to lead good, faithful Christians astray. Story 75. Absolute refusal to be objective or to question the doctrine or dogma presented to them, even when the facts are documented. Story 76. High control groups use a common set of mind control tactics. The idea is that members are under the undue influence of a particular thinker or organization. They may make significant life changes, including alterations in behavior or personality. They limit their access to outside information and deeply tie their identity to the group. Members use mental shortcuts to rationalize challenges, cut off individuals who question their beliefs or connect them to their previous lives, and dedicate excessive time to the group or its activities. Story 77. Having an emotional reaction to a question that they should not have. Reacting with emotion instead of reason. They have been trained not to think about the subject rationally, to simply believe what they have been told and not question it. Story 78. They deny outright facts and make excuses for them. I had a friend who, after getting out of prison, became very involved in Scientology to the point of putting himself in debt. The troubling thing is that he discovered this while he was locked up. Story 79. Tell me something random that I need to believe in. I will accept facts and build from there, but please do not provide any unsubstantiated claims. Story 80. Being complete. Story 81. Cognitive dissonance refers to an unwillingness to acknowledge objective reality despite clear and overwhelming evidence supporting that reality. It involves unwavering loyalty to a group or individual, even at one's own personal expense. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.